Having punched through the rebel armored column, the combined Ultramarines and Imperial Fist force, now reduced to one Land Raider and one Razorback, both full of troops, have arrived at the rebel camp. They plowed right through the perimeter defenses, where they took several direct hits from anti-vehicular weapons. They moved through a tent city, running over tents and supplies, and received additional damage to their treads and other portions of their hull. Uh, by the time they finally reached the Rebel Command Center, they had taken significant damage, but they were ready to take the fight to the Rebel commanders, who were holed up in a large and durable strongpoint. These two vehicles represent the only survivors of the attack against the Rebel armored column. They're making the best use that they can out of the transports. Inside this Land Raider are 5 Ultramarines, a tactical combat squad, alongside 2 5-man Imperial Fist combat squads, and the Ultramarines captain. Within here, we have a 5-man Devastator squad with missile launchers, Imperial Fists, and an Imperial Fist Tech Marine. Now, to indicate that they have driven into the command area and have just run right through the outer perimeter and completely ignored all incoming fire. If I can find the number on this. There we go. Both tanks are starting with half of their wounds. Now, I have a datasheet made up for tents. They are toughness 1 with 4 wounds and a 7+ save. Very easy to kill. But when you kill them, if anyone was embarked in them, they do not have to test to see if they die or take mortal wounds, and they are not battle shocked. This essentially represents that they are running out of the tent as soon as the tent starts taking fire. Now, if this were a narrative game, a GM would know who was in what tent and would keep it secret from the Marine player. But in this case, it's a playtest, so I know what's in the tents, but I might make it more interesting by randomizing certain tents. There are some tents, like these, that are closer to the commander's position, that I already know what's in those tents. But in a lot of these tents, if the Marines have the time to take them down, I'll probably have a random list of things that could be in them, from cultists to traitor guard, etc. The goal of the Space Marines is to push through lots of mere mortals. We have a apostate cardinal here, traitor enforcer, mutant Ogren, but these are not the commanders. These are just the people holding together this infantry platoon here. Well, it's not really enough people for a platoon, but I suppose if we I suppose we could say that they represent much more like, each one of these guys represents what would be like 5 guys or something like that. So it could be a platoon. This door here is the key. Once you're within 3 inches of this door, once one model from your unit is within 3 inches of this door, they can embark in the movement phase. Once they've done that, they will be inside the building with the commanders, and the commanders will be considered to be dead. So the victory condition is just to get one model within 3 inches of this door. Now, it doesn't seem like that difficult of a problem, even with our tanks at half health. It's just a lot of cultists and traitor guard squads, even though I did give them upgrades, as you can see. But there are surprises in store. Again, I already know what those surprises are, but for the Marines, we're pretending that we don't know what the surprises are. These tents are probably empty, judging by all these cultists that are hanging around here. Because the Marines are driving in, and they're the ones that are making this surgical strike, the Marines will be taking the first turn. A couple more things to mention before we get started. This gun is a Punisher, like the one that's on the Lehman Russ. Although the Lehman Russ, I believe, is twin-linked, this one is not. It's also automated, so it hits on 5s and can only target the closest unit. This macro cannon, I would say, is simply the Marines they're within the minimum range. In other words, you can see how the cannon is angled, so it just can't physically shoot at these guys. But basilisks have the same thing going on. There's no way that the cannon, being angled up the way it is, should be able to hit anything on the battlefield, but it's allowed anyway. So I decided an easier explanation is that the Prince of Space snuck in from behind enemy lines, and he's disabled temporarily the macro cannon. Otherwise, the macro cannon would have made short work of these vehicles, as it would have had chances to fire multiple times. We also have these Negavolt cultists. They're in odd group sizes. Some of them are accessing control panels. They're basically maintaining this communications array. Once the fight starts, they'll get together in groups of 4. There'll be 3 groups of 4. And they'll try to get into melee combat. There are other surprises in store. Now, for the real reason that we're here, that I put all this together, I did want to have some fun with it, so that's why I put it together like a true narrative event. However, there's 2 reasons why this is all here right now and that you're watching this video. 2 rules are being tested, and they'll probably be tested in the next few sessions as well. Unlimited range and simultaneous removal. Most weapons have unlimited range. If a weapon has a rule that triggers based on being in half range, for example, then you would use the range that's listed on the weapon. So my example is a las gun can fire across the board. It has unlimited range, but to be in rapid fire range, it has to be within 12 inches, because we still have to have the maximum range printed on the weapon if it has rapid fire. So the only reason that we deal with the 24-inch range on the las gun is so we know what half of it is. So that's certain weapons are exempt. I decided to make melta weapons entirely exempt, simply because all melta weapons have some kind of range restriction. Even multi-meltas are 24-inch range, which is not very long range for being a heavy weapon. So melta weapons are exempt. Torrent weapons are exempt because that's just ridiculous. Pistol weapons are exempt. Shotgun weapons, any weapon with the word shotgun in it, and if there's a shotgun that is not called a shotgun, then we can use our brains and figure out what it means. And finally, weapons that have a range of 12 or less are clearly intended to have a very limited range, so those are also exempt from having unlimited range. Everything else can fire unlimited. So this las and plas turret here, the plasma gun can fire across the entire board, but because it has a 24-inch range, it's only going to have rapid fire out to 12 inches. Same with these hurricane bolters. They are 6 attacks with rapid fire 6 and 24-inch range. So again, in 12 inches, they will have 12 attacks each. However, I could have both of the hurricane bolters fire all the way across the board, and they would still get 6 attacks each. After that, the second rule that we're testing is simultaneous removal. Simultaneous removal means that if I attack a squad, like let's say the Land Raider shoots these cultists and kills 6 of them, they're not removed until the end of the battle round. So then on the cultist turn, or rather the rebel turn, they'll be able to move, shoot, charge, fight with those models, and then at the end of the battle round, they get removed. Now, for anything that triggers on death, which there's lots of rules that do, or if you gain victory points from killing something, for example, those things occur as soon as the model is down to 0 wounds. So removing them at the end of the battle round doesn't just rack up all the trigger on death things. Everything will still trigger. For example, if this guy for some reason had Deadly Demise, that would trigger as soon as he reached 0 wounds. But he wouldn't actually be removed until the end of the battle round, which gives him a chance to fight back and not be killed before he has a chance to act. So I have a good feeling about both of these rules, and I feel like I want to test them in a few more, at least a few more sessions, and that way I can learn, are they truly worth keeping around? I want them to be useful. I want them to work out. So I want to play these extra games and learn about, what's good and what's not, and try to file down the rules so that they're more usable, less overpowered. So for the time being, the rules are just as I explain them. And we'll just be monitoring how they work as I play in various scenarios. All right, so we are starting the Marine turn 1 now. The Marines were essentially unable to move in the movement phase. So instead, they fired their weapons, which are largely anti-infantry, into 3 tents. This tent spat out 5 cultists. This tent also spat out 5 cultists. And this one was holding a full 10-man squad of Trader Guardsmen with the same upgrade weapons that the other units have. A melta-gun, plasma gun, sniper rifle. Only this guy, most of my sergeants have chainswords and las pistols. This guy actually has a plasma pistol and a power sword. And that's effectively the end of their shooting phase. They want to get a little more work out of the tanks and try to shield people from fire, so they haven't disembarked yet. This is the end of Marine turn 1. So now beginning Rebel turn 1, we have a lot of small arms fire going into these vehicles. We do have a couple of plasma shots that will be firing across the board, so we'll see how that works. Rebel turn 1, I kind of got lost around the end of calculating how many autoguns were actually getting hits. I'm counting these cultists of having autoguns instead of just auto pistols like they normally do. So around the upper 80s, I kind of got lost, so I rounded it up to 90 shots, and they rolled completely average. Like completely exactly right down the line, including the wound rolls. The only thing that wasn't average is that the Land Raider didn't roll any 1s on its armor save, so all that small arms fire just deflecting off of this armor. Heavy ceramite, it's good for something. Here, the Negavolt cultists so abandon their duties in maintaining the communications array, and they're moving in to attack. I tried to keep the movements of the Trader Guard fluffy. These guys are former Planetary Defense Force. They're well drilled, and they're disciplined. So they're maintaining their ranks, as you can see. This one was scattered when their tent was destroyed, but they've formed up in ranks and are making organized resistance against this massive monstrosity that can't seem to be scratched. These ones, equally disciplined, are staying exactly where they are because they're protecting the hatch. The Flamer also didn't do anything, but it's becoming aware to the Marines that they need more than just the guns on the vehicles. They're all going to have to disembark and take down as many of these infantry as possible, especially because The cultists, as they are, they're essentially, meat shields, and they will waste the Marines' time in order for these melt-a-guns to get close enough to do something. So, beginning of Marine turn 2, we're going to see disembarkation, and we're going to see lots of shots. As far as rules that I'm testing, it was fun to sling plasma shots down the lane, but plasma doesn't really do much against a Lehman, or not a Lehman Russ, geez, a Land Raider. So, beginning of Marine turn 2. Just showing off the Marine positions here. We have the combat squad and the captain here. We have 2 combat squads here. One has a flamer, one has a missile launcher. This combat squad just has a melt-a-gun. And then we have the tech marine and a devastator squad with 4 missile launchers. They'll be using their ballistic skill 4 because they disembarked. That's considered a normal move. So they will be firing the frag missiles at ballistic skill 4. But that should still do a lot to clean out all this mess. We're probably exclusively targeting cultists at this point, just to get them out of the way. On to Marine shooting phase. The Marine shooting phase is finished, and boy did they make progress. Almost all of the cultists are dead now. Just 3 remain in this unit right here. Now, who knows what can disembark from these tents, but for the time being, the Marines have freed up a lot of room to operate. So now it's on the Rebels to try and close that gap and do some meaningful damage with some of those upgrade weapons they're so proud of. We're starting Rebel turn 2 now. The Marines hear a Rebel sergeant yell into the tent, "We have this, my lord. No need for you to be involved. We will take care of the defense." Cryptic as that is, the Marines are tracking the very organized response of these former Planetary Defense Force soldiers, and they're taking note that on their left flank, we have 12 negavolt cultists charging in. On to Rebel shooting. Combining massed autogun shots, plasma weapons, melta weapons, sniper rifles, and even the Punisher Gatling cannon, 3 Marines have been killed. 2 wounds have gone onto the captain from a sniper rifle. Ultimately, 3 Marines is a big deal, but the Marines are about to clean up on their next shooting phase as Marine turn 3 comes around. And we might want to watch these tents. We don't know what's inside them yet. Just a quick analysis of the movement phase. Ultramarines don't really benefit from moving anywhere. These Imperial Fists are going to try to deal with the remainder of the cultists and maybe even do some wounds over here, but maybe we just leave that to the many anti-infantry shots that this Land Raider can spit out and try to rip apart these 5-up save guys. This unit has remained stationary. Now, there is a 5-man combat squad with a missile launcher. They embarked back into the vehicle, and the vehicle is driving forward. They're hoping to disembark further into the camp where they can do more damage. On to shooting. End of Marine turn 3, and as you can see, the shooting phase was very productive. There are only 4 negavolts remaining. The only thing that helped them was these tents that concealed them from view. We had this 5-man squad. It took everything they had to kill not only the cultist, but the cultist Firebrand, who has a number of wounds. These guys were able to clean up a little bit, but speaking of cleaning up, Land Raider Crusaders do a wondrous job at cleaning up Traitor Guard squads. Was able to kill the entire 10-man squad, even though we still have another squad as backup, and these ones firing long-range shots, and the possibility of reinforcements through tents. It's still good to clear out a whole squad. And so, we're going to Rebel turn 3. We're going to see how the rebels react to the Marines killing everything that comes close to them. A Chaos Space Marine aspiring champion and his command staff exit the tent. The Chaos Space Marine shouts, "Sound the alarm! Wake the beast! Empty the tents!" On to turn 3, Rebel movement phase. All across the camp, Rebel fighters have exited their tents. They don't carry the upgrade weapons that many others do, but they all have sturdy auto guns and the same resolve that the rest of the former Planetary Defense Force have. They're disciplined, they immediately form into firing squads, and they immediately move on the Marines' position. The Negavolts had moved forward, hoping to use the Trader Guard squad as cover so they can use those essentially taser goads against the Marines. Everyone has left their tents except for this one. There's odd movements are detected, as if something large is moving around inside of the tent, but it has yet to exit. On to Rebel shooting phase 3. The Rebels threw everything they had at the Marines. After all that, this Devastator squad was undamaged. This combat squad was undamaged. We did take one more casualty here. I decided to kill the sergeant. The melt-a-gun is roughly, I mean, when you're shooting at Trader Guardsmen, it's the melt-a-gun and the plasma pistol a little similar. But just as a hunch, we're holding onto the melt-a-gun. That might be more useful than a sergeant. After all that firepower, that's all the damage that was done. So now let's see what the Marines can do now that the entire Rebel force, minus whatever's in here, is facing them. Space Marine turn 4 begins. Seeing that they were needed to take out the rest of these rebels, the combat squad that had jumped back into the Razorback leaped out from the other door and are now going to face down these troops. Seeing the number of Marines dwindling as the Ultramarines take the brunt of the attack and bleeding from his own wound, the captain decides it's time to play his trump card. All this time he had been carrying with him a teleport homer. He activates it, and soldiers in orbit, waiting for their time, have finally arrived. In a flash of brilliant light, 5 Terminators appear on the battlefield. Reinforcements are here, and with their shooting, they should be able to make short work of this meet. It hasn't escaped the Marines' attention that something is dwelling inside this tent. The Terminators may just be called upon to deal with that threat. Thus ends the Marine shooting phase 4. Something I want to point out, there were 2 autogun Trader Guardsmen here, and everything that was being fired at him was rolling terribly. They either weren't hitting or weren't wounding. Most of these bolt guns weren't doing anything. And finally I remembered, oh yeah, the Devastator squad has, a bolt gun sergeant, so let's just throw 2 bolt shells, 2 hits, 2 wounds, 2 failed saves, both guys died. So throwaway attacks, people. It's okay to fire those tiny weapons because sometimes the odds will just jump in your favor. As you can see, the Terminators ripped apart the squad that was in front of them. They just teleported in. I'm saying that it's too soon for them to have the momentum to charge into combat, so they're facing down this group of rebel leaders. We have a Tech Marine, aspiring champion, representing the Chaos Space Marine presence. We have someone that, if you can see closely, has a bunch of medals on his chest. He's some kind of commander. We have this pale, sort of psyker looking, possibly. We have a commissar or ex-commissar. We have a couple of lower level officers. And we have a rogue psyker. It's an odd and horrible crew, all representing, well, some representing the Chaos Space Marine presence. The rest are from the former Planetary Defense Force, now Traitor Guard, or Rebel forces. The real leaders, however, are staying inside their bunker, wisely. As soon as they realized how many Space Marines were coming their way and that these were large tanks, they wisely thought it would be safer to stay at the command center. They thought all these troops would hold back the Marines. Well, they didn't. It's turn 4. Marine phase is just, or the Marine turn has just ended, and there's not much left on the battlefield. These guys have been putting up a little bit of a struggle. They have a 5-up invuln and a 5-up feel no pain, but they're still dying to mass anti-infantry fire. With no charges, we're moving on to Rebel turn 4. Now, there's one unit that has yet to enter the fray, and we're going to see it right now. Here comes the Rebel turn 4 movement phase. The tent bursts open, and a Hellbrute is revealed. Later, the Space Marines will determine that a tent was constructed over the Hellbrute to conceal it from aerial reconnaissance, and somehow they managed to keep it steady and still until it was called upon. Now that the Chaos aspiring champion has activated it, it's burst out of the tent and it's ready to begin ripping things to shreds. With its twin las cannon and Hellbrute hammer, these tanks are at serious risk. Can the Terminators mitigate that risk? Or should the Terminators use their high anti-infantry potential to put out shots here? We'll find out as the Rebel shooting phase commences. This is turn 4, Rebel shooting phase. The Rebel shooting phase was very quick. The MVPs so far are the Rogue Psychers. This guy is a Necromancer from Age of Sigmar / Warhammer Fantasy Battles. This guy is actually a Rogue Psycher from Warhammer Quest Blackstone Fortress. They have the same data sheet, which is on the Facebook group where I post these videos. They were the only ones to do any damage to the Terminators. They got 1 down to 1 wound. Everything else whiffed, including the twin las cannon. Now it's time for charging. The Negavolt cultists got a 7, which is enough to get them in with the Imperial Fist unit. Now they get to roll a die for every member in the squad, and for every 6, they deal a mortal. No 6s, no mortals. The Hellbrute got a 6. His targets were the tent and this unit of Imperial Fists. And as you can see, a 6 doesn't get them quite close enough. So he's going to move here. He's going to swing his Hellbrute Fist at the tent, wounding on 2s. And that goes straight through. The thing is ripped to shreds. No, I don't have their stats on hand, so this will just be a moment. Okay, the 3 negavolt cultists will be using their electrogodes. Like many electricity-based weapons, they have sustained hits. In this case, sustained hits 2. They hit on 3s. No sustained hits, and lots of misses. Strength 5, wounding on 3s. 3 wounds. No AP. 3 up saves. And the Imperial Fists are fine. They're going to fight back. Hitting on 3s. Not very enthusiastic, are we? Wounding on 3s. 3 wounds. 5 up invuln. 5 up feel no pain. That's what they had in their original 40k rules. That's what they have now. They did fail 1 save, so that's 1 dead. And that's it for Revel turn 4. We're going to move on to Marine turn 5, and things are going to get pretty interesting. We're going to see if we can do anything about the Hellbrute. We're going to see what a full turn with Terminators is going to look like, and we'll see just how close we can get to accomplishing the Marines' goals this turn. I imagine we'll probably need to go into a turn 6, but we'll see what happens. In the meantime, we're moving on to Marine movement phase. This is the end of Marine movement phase, turn 5. And I just want to say at this point, and I'll probably make an announcement early in the video when I edit it, that I completely forgot about the simultaneous removal rule that I was supposed to be testing. That's where models don't get removed until the end of the battle round. I can start doing it now, and we will see immediately what happens. For example, if I'm able to kill this Hellbrute, it'll still get its full turn to move, shoot, charge, fight, etc. Same with this here. I'll probably kill this command squad pretty easily. These guys are mostly toughness 3 with only a couple of wounds max. But they'll still be alive as long as they're not killed in melee, which these guys just might do. So we'll see. So starting now, I'm going to be testing simultaneous removal. I intend to test that rule a lot more because I think there's potential there, and I know there's some problems with it that need to be ironed out. So anyway, on to Marine shooting. Okay, that was end of the Marine shooting phase, and we have the first evidence of what it's like to not remove models until the end of the battle round. We have these 4 that were wounded. Turns out, as I was looking through my files, a lot of these guys have 4 wounds. The old company commander has 4 wounds. Rogue Psychers have 4 wounds. And commissars and the platoon commanders, which these guys don't exist anymore, I didn't feel like looking them up, so I just gave them 4 wounds anyway. So, considering each of them had 4 wounds, the fact that we were able to take out 4 of them and did 3 wounds to 1 is great. But if we can't stop them in the fight phase, because the fight phase is the exception, if you can kill something in melee, it'll die immediately and get removed immediately. You can swing on these guys in melee, or just assign wounds to them. They're treated as having 1 wound remaining each. So if they're killed with melee attacks, then they do not get to go next turn. The only real thing worth mentioning, we put a lot of firepower into this guy, and Dreadnoughts and Hellbrutes can be resilient. We had a gets hot or hazardous mishap on the plasma cutter on this Tech Marine. We were able to take out this whole squad, but it's going to be able to shoot before it dies. So I'm just going to do assaults off camera now. I was doing them on camera since those were really the first assaults of the battle. But now I'm just going to roll off camera. Except I lied. I want to show how a unit of half lying down models and half not lying down models interact with the Terminators fighting them in the fight phase. So they get their charge off. Okay, and there's no other charges. There's just a continuing fight here. And nobody is man enough to fight the Hellbrute yet. So, Terminators. Pile in. So, here we have a power sword. I'm throwing stats together from what I remember. If I get them wrong, sue me. 3 hits. This is strength 5 versus toughness 3. Need 3s. That's 3 wounds. AP minus 2. Now these guys, the guys that died, they had refractor fields. But these guys just have 5-up armor saves. So this guy does have a refractor field. So I'm going to put the wounds on him. So that's a 5-up. So he made 2 of his 5-up invulns and takes 1 wound. Oops. Speaking of 1 wound. Alright, so I'm just going to make a note to myself here. 1 wound. Now we have 12 power fists. Hitting on 3s. Wounding on 2s. Okay, so that's 5 wounds. So we're going to allocate again. These are AP minus 2. So I'm going to use the refractor field model, try and get those invulns. Nope, so that model takes 2 wounds. He only had 1 remaining, so he is now dead. Or quote-unquote, well, actually, no, he is actually dead because he died from a melee attack. Okay, next I'm putting wounds on the Tech Marine. No, wait. Well, this is kind of a squad of characters which doesn't exist in 10th edition, so I'm going to put it on the Tech Marine. Normally, we would have to kill the bodyguard unit, but there was no bodyguard unit. All these guys are characters. So, we have 4 more Power Fist wounds. Tech Marine has a 3-up save, is now a 5-up. So that's 2 damage on him, and 2 more, meaning he's dead. And he is actually dead because he got killed by a melee attack. Next, we'll put a save onto the Aspiring Champion. So he also has a 3-up armor save, so that he failed 1 save and takes 2 damage, so he's dead. Actually dead, not quote-unquote dead. And all we have left is this guy at 1 wound. And he actually didn't get a save because he had a 5-up armor save. So he takes 2 damage. He only had 1 wound left. So he actually dies. So these guys are technically considered to be alive. So it is permissible to pile in. Now, ideally, I would have some kind of counter, maybe a d20, showing who's alive and who's not. It's a little tricky with this squad because, again, these are all characters. Commissar, 2 platoon commanders, and a rogue psyker. But effectively, they're all in base-to-base contact with these 4. Now, what that means is these 4 now get to fight back. I have no idea what the stats are on a platoon commander. I haven't looked at them in a couple of editions, so I'm just going to roll some dice. Roll dice, have fun. Looks like 1 wound with no AP. And let's see, that's a power sword. that the Commissar has. He missed with all of them, which is understandable since he got hit with several bolt rounds. And then we have the Rogue Psyker, who has a force stave, 2 attacks hitting on 4s. That's 1 hit. This does devastating wounds. Otherwise, it's strength 3, so I'm wounding on 5s. Nope, nothing. So that's how we stand, and they're still going to be alive, so these guys can still fire their pistols into this unit on the Rebels' turn. Speaking of the Rebels' turn, let's just see what we can do. You know what? We don't need to watch this. I'm going to roll the dice really quick. Okay, we ended with a little tit for tat. 1 Negavolt killed and 1 wound onto the Imperial Fists. They've been rolling really terribly on their punches and kicks. They should have killed this unit a long time ago. But it's good to kill the unit on the traitor turn, because then that unit will be free to move around and shoot at what they want. Anyway, the Marines feel emboldened, having Terminators appear in the battlefield and wipe out a command squad. It's pretty emboldening. It's pretty empowering. So the Marines now have a morale boost. And now it's going to be Rebel turn 5. They're going to see if they can repel these. We have, for the first time, a lot of these guys are getting rapid fire on the Terminators here. No, they're not. The Terminators are still in combat. So it's just the pistols going into them. These guys can't shoot the Terminators at all right now, so they're probably going to try to take out these guys. Do away with the Ultramarine leadership, and hope that will affect the mostly untouched Imperial Fists up here, that, aside from this big nasty Hellbrute, there's almost no resistance. So, beginning Traitor turn 5. So the Terminators are fighting back. I forgot to start recording immediately, so I rolled a power sword, and the power sword was able to do 1 wound, and he didn't roll. He tried to roll his refractor shield or refractor field, and he failed. He rolled a 4. So he takes 1 wound and dies. Now remember, these guys all have 1 wound in this state. So here come the Power Fists. These are hit rolls. Wounding on 2s. Okay, so again, we have 2 guys with refractor fields. So failed, and that kills the Commissar. Failed, and that kills the platoon sergeant. And now this guy just has a 5-up, which there's 4 more Power Fist wounds coming, and it cuts right through his armor. He had 5-up save. They have AP -2 on their Power Fists. And he had only 1 wound remaining, so he is now dead. So they are now dead for all time. And only at this point, well, actually, we would have to finish off this combat here. But once that combat's done, only at this point we remove these guys from the game. So, may as well do this combat quick. Negavolt Cultist gets 2 hits. Oh, one of them was a sustained 2. Strength 5, that's 1 wound. No AP, so he makes a save. Let's see if the Marines can kill him. And 5. Hitting on 3s. Wounding on 3s. Wow, nice. 5-up invulns. Made 2. And 5-up feel no pains. He made 2, failed 3. He only needed to fail 1 because he has 1 wound. So that's it. That's it for the Negavolt cultists. So at this point, we're at the end of the battle round. So this guy, I forget if I mentioned, he's dead. So he gets removed from the battlefield, and so do these rebels. Sorry, one more thing to mention. This Razorback was destroyed in shooting. No, I kept the model remaining, which confused me, which that's going to be a problem with this rule, is I forgot that it was destroyed because I didn't remove it right when it was destroyed. I already rolled Deadly Demise. It didn't Deadly Demise. It could potentially be charged and killed, but he doesn't have to do that. He could charge this unit here and just leave it alone, and at the end of the battle round, it's gone. Now, just for some narrative fun, there are 3 different charge targets if we ignore this. I'm not sure he could fit through here, but we'll just pick from one of these 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is an insanity roll, which you remember from Chaos Dreadnoughts. So this unit is the one that he's charging. And he's pretty much got it in the bag. Minimum distance. So I'm going to roll off screen. So this is the end of Marine turn 6 movement. That unit fell back from this combat. They only lost 2 Marines. These guys are standing still. They're going to fire another volley into this guy. Hopefully it'll actually do something this time. These tents are becoming bothersome, so we're going to throw some throwaway shots into them to destroy them. These Terminators committed to this. They want to wipe everything out here alongside this captain so that we can get to the actual victory condition. This thing may be big and tough, but it's slow. So we'll see what happens in the Marine shooting phase. Okay, we have a quick snapshot of the Marine turn 6 shooting. You can see we cleared off a lot of the tents here. We had 4 crack missiles slung into him, only 1 wounded, and he made his save. Let's see, what else needs mentioning? Oh yeah, this. So we did a lot of damage, and here's where we're going to see how important the distinction is. That they haven't... They're reduced to 0 wounds, but that they won't be removed till the end of the battle round. I also called these guys like his kind of almost like Dark Disciples, just so I could put some wounds on them and have this guy just hang out alone. So a charge happened here. He attempted to charge but didn't get enough. So I'm going to go through. I'm just going to... No, damn it. I have to do this combat because there's guys who are quote-unquote dead, but are going to be removed simultaneously between both sides. So we do have to allocate wounds, etc. So let's see. Power Sword. Wounding on 3s. So it's 2 wounds, AP -2. That cuts through the armor of almost everyone in the squad. I can't put wounds on these guys yet. So I'm going to remove guys that have already been shot to death first. And we'll see how abusive that gets. Collecting dice now for the Terminator Power Fists. It's probably going to be irrelevant because I'm probably going to just cut right through the majority of this unit. Wounding on 2s. Okay, no, what am I thinking? Those are all wounds. So 8 wounds. So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and That's just enough to kill the squad, not enough to kill the leaders. Are the leaders close enough to pile in and fight? Yes. No. No, that's not how the rule works. I'm getting confused between H of Sigmar and they're more than, actually that was more than 3 inches. That would put them into engagement range, but now that the turners are done fighting, these guys become a 2 model character unit. And yeah, they don't fight. Which means on their turn, which is coming up in a second, they'll be able to charge and fight. And this will be interesting because these guys will all get to shoot. And we have our poor little captain here with 3 wounds remaining on him. So, on to Rebel movement and shooting phase, turn 6. Rebel movement and shooting phase for turn 6. The Land Raider took some damage. I believe he's now damaged and is -1 to hit. I forgot to remove this model. Again, another problem with simultaneous removal as a rule. These guys took a wound from these guys. And these guys did some damage. They did 2 wounds onto the captain. He came very, very close. The Melt-A-Gun hit and wounded, and he made his invuln. Plasma guns got very scary, but nothing bad happened there. Here's a problem. I supercharged the plasma gun. So normally a hazardous check would be made, but if I had rolled a 1, how would I reconcile that? I'll have to think about that, because if he had rolled a 1, then the plasma gun guy would have 3 mortal wounds going right into him. And his model can't be removed until the end of the battle round, so the problem is that you can freely use hazardous weapons without having to worry about what will happen to you. So I might have to put in a provision for hazardous weapons saying, if you roll a 1 on the hazardous roll, don't even worry about mortal wounds. That model is just dead. I don't care how many wounds it used to have. He already died. So using a hazardous weapon is super hazardous once you've already been killed. So these guys moved up. They're determined to block the door. And while they did that, the sneaky apostate cardinal moved quickly along the wall, closed the door, locked it. He is now inside the building, along with the commanders and their adjutants and all of their data and all of their equipment and everything that hooks up to this comm array here. So as soon as Marines can get in there, they'll be able to easily clean it out with a few bolter shots, a few bolter volleys maybe, perhaps take the building for themselves, maybe hold it until the Astra Militarum can get here, and this would definitely put the rebel forces in the region into disarray, because all of these comm dishes would go silent, orders would stop coming in, people giving reports, the reports wouldn't go to anybody. Anyway, I'm gonna have to make these things less elaborate in the future, because I'm having way too much fun doing narrative stuff, and this isn't about narrative stuff, it's about testing rules. So yeah, it'll be a little more straightforward from here on out. So I'm just going to do close combats, and I'm going to skip them because you don't really need to know what goes on. This doesn't have anything to do with the rules that I'm playing with. Okay, end of Rebel turn 6. These guys were able to charge and take out 1 Terminator. The Terminators in turn took them out. So we're at the end of... Oh, I'm sorry. And the Hellbrute was able to kill the Land Raider. So now we're at the end of the Rebel turn. We're at the end of the battle round. So now that we're under the battle round, we remove these guys. We remove all of these guys. And we remove this guy. After 6 turns of very heavy fighting, you can see the results. Very little is left. The Imperial Fist got on pretty well, but now they're not really going to be able to do much about him. The Devastator Squad will only have one more chance to shoot him before they get smashed. So mostly it's going to become a game of just capturing this building and requesting reinforcements from the Astra Militarum before this thing decides to turn this way and start smashing on the building. All right, so we're gonna do a turn 7 just so we can have a conclusion. So this is Marine movement and shooting. Marine shooting phase didn't take long. 2 casualties over there. They'll remain until the end of the battle round. Here, the Terminators turned and moved toward the beast. They're going to attempt to take it down. They fired a lot of small arms fire into it and it didn't do anything. However, these Devastators finally managed to get 1 missile through, dealt 4 damage. The missile colliding with his back certainly will get his attention. So on the Rebel turn, he's probably going to go over there and rip these guys apart. These guys are running for the building, as did he. Now, I honestly don't remember if you can advance and embark, but I'm going to say he can. He flings the door open, and he's inside. And let's have a flavorful end to this. He finds the apostate cardinal on the other side and decides to rip him a new one. He'll use the captain's finest hour rule to get 3 extra attacks, and I believe these are also dev wounds. To double check, but it shouldn't be hard for him to kill the apostate cardinal. Unless the Rosarius save just rolls hot like it does sometimes. So there we go. 5 power weapon wounds. Here's his 4-up. And yep, he is absolutely dead. He didn't make a single Rosarius save. So Apostate Cardinal is dead, and the captain is going to get busy with killing the rest of the command staff. Starting with the commanders themselves. Going to switch to Rebel, turn 7. The Hellbrute was able to take out the sergeant, and just for some fluffy fun, I'm going to let these guys fire Overwatch before the Hellbrute runs into them. Hitting on 6s, crack missiles. There's a 6. Wounding on 4s. Nah, no such luck. Alright, so it doesn't really matter what he gets in his charge roll. He's in. 5 attacks, hitting on 4s. 3 hits. Wounding on 2s. 2 wounds. Run -3. Someone made a save. And someone else gets splattered. So one of the missile launchers has got to go. I actually have to look up the Tech Marine. I'm using the old Tech Marine, not the new one, the new Primaris one. This one has the Flamer and the Plasma Cutter. Anyway, I'll do the punches and kicks while I'm at it. For the Devastators with missile launchers. All hit. And 1 wound. Ha! He failed to save. He is down to 3 wounds. And I have no idea what that 1 wound is there for. I'll probably figure it out when I'm editing. So that's it for the Rebel turn. Rebel turn 7. So we're at the end of the battle round, so this guy gets removed, and these guys get removed. And I'm going to stop the demo there. I'm going to continue to run it for my own enjoyment. At this point, the Marines have reached their victory condition. It's just a matter of, can the things on the board kill the Hellbrute? He's down to 3 wounds. Eventually these guys are going to get to him. You know what? Let's just do that. Let's fast forward. Lots of guys die. And we'll do this combat simultaneous. So the Hellbrute's going to swing. Sorry, there we go. Wounding on 2s. 4 up saves. Not good at all. So 3 bite it. Power sword. No wounds. And we have 3 power fists. Hitting on 3s. Wounding on 5s. 2 wounds. AP -2. We could do this. 4 up saves. We did it. We did 4 damage. He had 3 runes remaining, so he is now dead. I don't know if they get deadly demise. It doesn't matter. So there you have it. 1 Terminator survived. This thing is dead. The camp has been ripped apart. There's dead Marines. There's lots and lots of dead rebels. And some of these rebels died, came back, and died again. And the Marines, as all that is happening with the Terminators, we have a dude with a flamer and 4 bolt gun guys. All of them enter the command center, and they assist the captain with killing everyone inside and taking control of the systems. I'll do some after-action reporting after, maybe a day after I post this, to say what the storyline impacts were on these events. But I can tell you immediately that the Marines accomplished their mission, although they lost quite a lot doing it. But they did push through the Traitor Guard lines, and they found the Rebel Command Center. They defeated all of the formidable defenses and the massive number of bodies, and were able to penetrate into the command center, kill everyone in it, and take control of the equipment. Rebel forces across the continent have lost contact with each other, have lost contact with the command center. They're not getting new orders. Their reports are not being read. And that's the end of that. So I really have to focus on simultaneous removal, the rule for simultaneous removal. Models are reduced to 0 wounds. They have to be kept track of somehow. I would recommend turning them on their side the way I do it. And you don't actually remove the model till the end of the battle round. This playtest session, we discovered that that can cause some funny things to happen in close combat, where you can attack people who have already been reduced to 0 wounds in an attempt to stop them from fighting anymore. And doing so can cause people who have already been reduced to 0 wound to still use things like Fiona Pains or their invuln saves. So guys that have already been killed can sometimes be a little bit difficult to kill. I am moving this narrative closer to being more Marines versus Chaos-based Marines. So that'll be a little easier to test rules on, because it's lots of toughness 4, lots of 3-up saves, etc. Lots of equivalent units. It's, and also I need to fix hazardous. I keep thinking gets hot. Hazardous. I need to fix hazardous. If you have already been reduced to 0 wounds, you can still fire hazardous weapons. If you roll a 1 on the hazardous roll, you're just gone. Your model just dies. It doesn't matter if he's a 4 wound model. Although guys that have gone down to 0 wounds, I might just have to count them as having 1 wound for purposes of any kind of rule. I don't know. There's a lot I need to work on for simultaneous removal. It's turned into quite a complex rule, I did one fix on it, but it looks like I'm going to have to fix it even more. It's going to turn out to be pretty wordy, but ultimately it should end up being a little more balanced. I just have to do more playtesting and find out what happens. Like in this playtest session, I found out that hazardous is a problem for simultaneous removal. So we'll see in next week's playtest session. But for now, be happy for the Marines. It cost them most of their forces, but they were able to defeat all of the enemy forces and accomplish their mission. So, good job, Marines.